She slapped me so hard that the glass fell from my hand and shattered on the floor. Everyone at the table froze. My father didn't even flinch. He just looked away while my sister pointed at me and shouted, "Get out of my house, Kristen! You're nothing but a burden." My heart was pounding, my eyes burning, but I didn't say a word. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door while they all just watched. Some whispering, some laughing. Nobody stopped her. Nobody defended me. If you're watching this, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Because what happened next shocked every single one of them. When I stepped outside that night, the rain was pouring, and I had nowhere to go. My own family had thrown me out like trash. My sister's words echoed in my head. "You'll never be anything without us." She didn't know that those words were the spark I needed. Because from that night, I made a promise to myself. I'll never walk back into that house. Until I own one 10 times bigger. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just walked away in silence. But inside me, something had already changed. They thought they had broken me. They didn't know. I had just started building something that would destroy their arrogance completely. And soon, they'd regret every word they said that night. That night, I found myself sitting at the bus stop, soaked, freezing, and completely alone. My phone battery was dead, and all I had in my wallet was $12. For the first time, I realized what it truly meant to have no one. My mother didn't call. My father didn't text. And my sister probably went back to laughing at the dinner table like nothing happened. But I didn't want their pity anymore. I wanted power. Real power. I spent that night sleeping on a bench outside a 24-hour cafe. When the sun rose, I walked inside and asked the manager if I could clean tables in exchange for food. He looked at me for a long second, maybe wondering why a girl with bruised hands and designer shoes was asking for a job. But he nodded. That tiny act of kindness was all I needed to start over. Days turned into weeks. I worked double shifts, washing dishes, cleaning floors, even running deliveries in the rain. No one knew I had a degree in business. No one knew I used to live in a big house. But while my hands worked, my mind never stopped planning. I started learning about online businesses, marketing, and e-commerce during my breaks. Free lessons on YouTube, tutorials, anything I could find. At night, I'd sit in the same cafe corner, scribbling down business ideas on napkins. One day, while helping a customer, I overheard 2 women talking about how hard it was to find affordable handmade jewelry online. That conversation lit something in me. I had always loved crafting bracelets with my mom before everything went wrong. That's when I decided, if no one would give me a chance, I'd create my own. I sold my last piece of jewelry, an old bracelet my grandmother gave me, to buy a few materials and start small. I opened a page called SoulSpark Designs, using the cafe's free Wi-Fi and my cracked phone. The first few weeks were brutal. No sales, no likes, no followers, but I didn't stop. Every post, every design, I made with pure emotion, reminders of the pain that pushed me this far. 3 months later, one of my posts went viral. A famous influencer wore my bracelet in her video and tagged me. Within hours, my inbox exploded. Orders from all over the country, messages of support, collaboration offers. I stood in the cafe kitchen, staring at my phone, tears streaming down my face. The same hands that once scrubbed floors were now building a brand. I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled through the tears and whispered, "You'll regret underestimating me." What they didn't know was that this was only the beginning. My silent rise had started, and soon, the people who threw me out would have no choice but to see me again. Only this time, from below. A year later, Kristen was no longer that broken girl sitting outside a cafe. She was the CEO of SoulSpark Designs, running her growing business from a small but elegant studio in downtown Chicago. Orders came in faster than she could manage. Celebrities wore her designs, magazines featured her story, and people from across the world tagged her brand as the jewelry that heals. But what made it even more satisfying was that no one in her family knew. Not her parents, not her sister. They all thought she had disappeared after being thrown out. And that's exactly how she wanted it. Silence had become her armor. Every day, she worked 16 hours straight, designing new collections, managing suppliers, shipping packages, and every night, she looked in the mirror and reminded herself, "They said I'd be nothing. I'll make sure they choke on their words. Months later, her brand hit $1 million in revenue. Her story of perseverance began spreading online, shared by motivational pages and podcasts. That's when her sister Lena stumbled upon a video titled, "From Homeless to $1 Million Businesswoman, the Story of SoulSpark's Founder." At first, Lena laughed it off. "She just stole someone's name," she said to their mother. "Kristen isn't that smart." But her mother's hands began to shake as she zoomed in on the video thumbnail. The woman looked exactly like Kristen. For the next few days, Lena couldn't stop thinking about it. She searched the brand's Instagram, the website, the founder's interviews, and the moment she saw Kristen's face during a live event, her stomach dropped. Her younger sister, the same one she threw out in front of everyone, was now standing on a red carpet stage, smiling in a designer dress worth more than Lena's car. The jealousy burned inside her like acid. That night, Lena called Kristen for the first time in over a year. Her voice was suddenly soft, almost trembling. "Hey, Kristen, it's me. I saw your business. Wow, you've done amazing." Kristen paused. For a moment, silence filled the air, thick with memories of humiliation, pain, and betrayal. "Is this the same sister who said I'd never survive a week on my own?" Kristen said, her tone calm but sharp. Lena laughed awkwardly. "Come on, that was so long ago. We were just emotional. You know how family fights are." "Emotional?" Kristen repeated, her voice steady. "You hit me. You pushed me out into the rain. You told me to get out of your house. That's not emotion, Lena. That's cruelty." Lena's tone turned desperate. "Kristen, please. Mom's planning a big family dinner next weekend. She wants you to come. Everyone wants to see you again. Please, just come." Kristen stared out of her studio window, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. She could almost hear the laughter from that night again. The mocking voices, the slammed door. Part of her wanted to hang up, but another part, the one that remembered every insult, every bruise, every lonely night, wanted to walk in with her head held high. After a long pause, she said quietly, "Sure, I'll be there." Lena smiled through the phone, pretending it was a reunion, but deep down, Kristen knew this dinner wasn't about love. It was about control. Her sister wanted to feel powerful again. What Lena didn't know, though, was that Kristen was no longer the same girl she threw away. She wasn't coming to beg for forgiveness. She was coming to end something that had been broken for years, and when she'd walk through that door next weekend, no one in that room would ever see her the same way again. The night of the family dinner arrived like a storm Kristen had been waiting for. Her black car pulled up to the same driveway where she had once stood in the rain, holding a broken suitcase and crying for help that never came. Now, the air was still. Her heels clicked softly against the marble path, and every step echoed with quiet power. She wore a deep emerald gown, simple but elegant, and around her neck gleamed one of her signature pieces from SoulSpark Designs, a diamond pendant shaped like a rising phoenix. Inside, laughter and chatter filled the house. The same people who had mocked her once were now sipping wine and talking about promotions, new cars, and their perfect lives. When she stepped through the door, every sound stopped. Forks froze in midair. Conversations died instantly. Her mother was the first to speak, her voice trembling. "Kristen." "You came," Kristen smiled politely. "Of course, Mother. I heard there was a dinner I shouldn't miss." Lena rushed forward, her expression painted with fake warmth. "You look amazing, Chris. Everyone's been talking about you lately." Kristen tilted her head. "Really? That's surprising. I thought I stopped existing for this family a long time ago." A heavy silence filled the room. Her father cleared his throat, trying to lighten the mood. "Let's all sit and eat. We have guests here, too." Kristen noticed a few unfamiliar faces. Business associates, neighbors, maybe even people who'd heard about SoulSpark. The irony made her want to laugh. They had invited her not out of love, but because her success had become impossible to ignore. As dinner began, conversation turned awkwardly toward Kristen's achievements. Lena tried to steer it in her favor. "So Chris, tell us, how did you manage all this? It's so sudden. Did someone help you get started?" Kristen set down her glass and looked directly at her sister. "No one helped me. I built everything myself, with the same hands that you all pushed out of this house." The room went completely still. Her mother whispered, "Kristen, please, not here." But Kristen continued, her voice calm yet slicing through the air like glass. "I slept in train stations. I sold sketches on sidewalks. I worked 3 jobs just to afford a laptop. Every single day I remembered your words. You'll never make it. Those words built my empire." Gasps filled the room. Some of the guests stared in shock. Lena's smile vanished, replaced by panic. "That's not fair. You're making us look bad." Kristen's lips curved into a faint smile. "Oh no, Lena. You did that yourselves." From her purse, Kristen pulled out a small black box and placed it on the table. Inside was a custom gold bracelet with the words, "Never Again," engraved on it. "This," she said, her voice unwavering, "is the first design I made after you kicked me out. It sold 10,000 pieces in the first month. Every time someone wears it, they wear a piece of my pain, turned into strength." Everyone was silent. Her father looked down, her mother covered her mouth, and Lena's eyes filled with tears, though whether they were from guilt or embarrassment, no one could tell. Kristen stood up, adjusting her jacket. "Don't worry, I didn't come here to humiliate anyone. I came here to thank you." She paused, looking straight at her sister. "If you hadn't destroyed me, I'd never have learned how to rebuild myself." Without another word, she turned and walked out of the house, her heels echoing down the hallway. The door closed softly behind her, but the silence she left behind was deafening. Outside, the cold wind brushed her face, and for the first time in years, she felt light. Not because she had won, but because she had finally let go. The past no longer had power over her. Kristen didn't just survive her family's cruelty, she turned it into her crown. And this time, she wasn't looking back. The next morning, headlines were everywhere. SoulSpark founder confronts her family in powerful reunion. From rejection to riches, Kristen's story inspires millions. Someone from the dinner had secretly recorded part of the confrontation, and within hours, the clip had gone viral. Kristen hadn't planned for that, but maybe the world needed to hear her truth. She scrolled through hundreds of messages, people sharing how they too had been disowned, doubted or broken, yet found courage through her story. Every comment reminded her of how far she'd come, but one message stood out. "You didn't just rise, Kristen. You taught us how to turn pain into power." She smiled, setting her phone aside. Still, deep down, her emotions were tangled. She had faced them. Yes. But the hollow ache of what could have been still lingered. The little girl inside her who once begged her mother for approval hadn't vanished completely. She still wanted closure, not revenge, not validation, but peace. That evening, she received an unexpected call. It was her father. His voice was slow, almost fragile. "Kristen, your mother hasn't stopped crying since last night. I know we failed you. I can't undo what happened. But if you're willing, we'd like to talk. No cameras, no guests. Just us." Kristen leaned back in her chair, staring at the half-finished sketch on her desk, a new pendant design shaped like 2 hands almost touching. She hesitated for a long time before replying. "I'll think about it," she said quietly. After hanging up, she looked around her studio, the framed magazine covers, the mood boards, the late-night coffee cups. Everything around her was built from her pain, but it was also her pride. Her assistant, Nora, entered, holding a tablet. "You've got a speaking invitation from Forbes Women in Business. They want you to talk about your journey. Next week." Kristen smiled faintly. "Tell them yes." When Nora left, Kristen stood near the window, the city lights glittering below. She could still see the rain outside, the same rain that once fell on her the night she was kicked out. But this time she wasn't drenched and broken. She was watching from above, safe, successful, unshaken. She whispered softly to herself, "Maybe one day I'll forgive them, but not because they deserve it, because I deserve peace." And yet, somewhere in her heart, she knew her story wasn't done. Because forgiveness wasn't easy, and when it came to her family, especially her sister, the truth had only begun to unravel. A few weeks later, Kristen stood backstage at the Forbes Women in Business conference. The auditorium was filled with hundreds of faces, cameras flashing, and banners that read, "From struggle to strength." She had given many interviews before, but today felt different. Today, she wasn't speaking to the world. She was speaking to herself. When her name was called, she walked onto the stage to a thunder of applause. Dressed in white, calm and radiant, she looked like the woman she used to dream of becoming. She took a deep breath and began. 3 years ago, I was told I wasn't good enough. I was told that my dreams were too big for someone like me, and I believed it for a while. Until I realized, no one can define your worth but you. The crowd was silent, every eye fixed on her. Success isn't about proving people wrong, she continued softly. It's about proving yourself right. When she finished, the audience stood in ovation. Kristen smiled, not out of pride, but peace. She had said everything that needed to be said. After the event, as she was leaving, she saw 2 familiar figures waiting near her car. Her parents. Her mother's eyes were swollen from crying. Her father looked older, humbler. For a moment, time stopped. Her mother stepped forward first. "Kristen," she whispered, "we watched your speech. You were incredible. I don't have the right words, but I want to say I'm sorry for everything." Tears welled up in Kristen's eyes. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, sometimes in anger, sometimes in hope. But now that it was real, she didn't feel fury. She felt release. "I forgive you," she said quietly. "But I can't come back to who I was. That version of me doesn't exist anymore." Her mother nodded through tears. "We understand, just promise us you'll visit sometimes." Kristen smiled faintly. "Maybe, when the time feels right." As they turned to leave, Lena appeared from behind the car. Her makeup was smudged, her voice shaking. "Kristen, wait." Kristen froze. Their eyes met. The same eyes that once glared with envy, now filled with regret. "I'm sorry," Lena whispered. "I was jealous. I thought if you failed, I'd shine brighter. But I only dimmed myself. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say that." For a long moment, Kristen said nothing. Then she stepped closer, placing a hand on her sister's shoulder. "You don't need my forgiveness, Lena," she said softly. "You need your own." Lena broke down crying, and for the first time in years, Kristen pulled her into a hug. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't full of promises, but it was real. Later that night, Kristen sat alone on her apartment balcony, watching the city lights dance beneath her. The wind carried the faint sound of laughter from the streets below. She picked up her sketchbook and drew something new. 2 phoenixes rising together, their wings intertwined. Underneath she wrote, "Pain made me strong. Forgiveness made me free." She closed the sketchbook, leaned back, and smiled. Her story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rebirth, and this time the chapter ended not with anger, but peace.